Good morning. I had a few minutes today, so I thought I might try to turn one of these bullet pins. I received the pin kit from, or purchased the pin kit from Penn State. They're not that bad to turn, and they look really, really nice when you're finished. So to start off, we're going to use a standard pin mandrel. This fits my lathe, my Morse taper on my lathe. I have, since the blank, and let me show you the blank, it's acrylic that I'm going to use, and it's a very small blank, and it's also a single blank. Many pins use, front and the back half of the pin. So I'm going to put some extra bushings on here. These are just some 7mm bushings from slimline kits, and these bushings will help me get the extra space that I need. And I'm going to use, I have a large bushing, and I like to use this one sometime, and as a matter of fact, let me back it off a little bit and put it in the middle of these small bushings. I like to use this one just as a spacer. Now, the kit requires the PK 7000 BU bushing set, and really these bushings, what they do is they're going to tell me the size that the pin needs to be for the top and the bottom, and they're going to have these little offsets in them that will slide into, I guess I should be on camera for that, that will slide into the ends of the blank, and this holds it on the mandrel. So let's get that chucked up. Now the last piece I like to use, I purchased the mandrel saver from Penn State, and I really like this because if there's any additional mandrel down here at the end that's sticking out, this slides over it and protects it from flexing. It also, right here you can see, it's about the size of a 7mm bushing, presses against the other bushings so that all the pressure is on the bushings and no pressure is on the mandrel, so the mandrel does not flex. Which is really nice because if you've ever bent a mandrel with a knurl nut, you can find your pins come out pretty rough looking. So let me slide up my tailstock here, lock this into place, get everything tightened down, and give it a quick test spin here. It looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start by rounding this blank over. And I'm going to try something new with the acrylic. I've not done this before. Normally I use a gouge to kind of round. I'm going to try today using my skew and see if I can round this blank over with the skew and as opposed to my standard gouge. And I am going to make one change. I don't like the way this looks. I'm going to back this off a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is move this in a tiny bit and get one of these additional 7mm bushings out here on the outside. I know it's hard to see with my hands in the way, but I just kind of prefer, to me it just feels more natural, so we're going to go this route. But let me get this lathe turned on here, and I'm going to start at about 1500 RPMs. And basically I'm just going to start off by trying to take some of the square edges off and sort of round this blank over. I guess I should tighten it down first. There we go. You can always tell when acrylic is rounded because it'll start producing these nice little wisps that will wrap around your blank and actually get in your way. And that's a sign of the blank is rounded as well as your skew is cutting like it should. You can hear it kind of get louder as I get toward the end, a little bit of vibration. That's because the end of the blank is not completely rounded yet. It will smooth out as I round that over. You can see the wisp starting to form and wrap around the blank, and you can hear that you don't have near the vibration that we had earlier. That's because the blank is becoming round. These little wisps just kind of get in the way. They will, if you're not careful, if you press against them, they'll heat up and actually mold themselves back to the blanks, so you really want to push them off and get them out of your way. We're getting pretty close down here at this end. A little bit left on that end. I am taking the lightest possible cut I can. I do not want to get in there and hog on this because I do know that I'm close at the end here of the bushings. You can feel it with your finger. There's not much of an edge there, and there's quite a bit of an edge there. So you just want to kind of take very, very light, slow cuts, so that you don't gouge into your blank and ruin your blank when you get this close to the end of the turning. If you have a very fat blank, obviously you don't want to get in there and gouge it and tear it up, but it's not going to be as big of a deal if you do make a mistake with a larger blank, because you're going to be cutting it down and you're able to get rid of that. When you get to this point, you just don't want to mess up. This is where you're really taking your time and being cautious. Turn that off. I can see now. I'm pretty close. I've got a little bit of a bulge in the middle and a little bit of bulge right here. I'm going to go ahead and try to take a couple of nice smooth cuts and just sort of take the middle down. The ends are perfect. They're right where I want them. So let me take a little bit more out of the middle, and then we'll start sanding. Actually, I think I'll go from this end. The wisps make it extremely hard because it's easy to gouge into your pin if you're not careful. I'm just trying to take some of the center area down and avoid taking much off the ends, because the ends are right where I want them. And lighten up on the cut when you get to the end. I'm starting out with a very light cut. As I get to the middle, I'm giving a tiny bit more. I'm turning the blade a little bit more into the blank. As I get to the end, I'm turning the blade a little bit away from the blank to lighten up on my cut. Looks pretty good. I've got a little bit of a rise in the middle there. I'm going to try to take that out. I've actually burned a couple of lines in there, so we're going to try to make one smooth pass, just a light pass to get rid of those. There we go, there's one of them out. Okay, that blank's looking pretty good. You can see a couple little ridges in the blank maybe on the video. I don't know how good it is, but those are going to come out as we sand. It's feeling really good. The only thing I don't like is right here at the end. I'm going to try to very lightly just take just a wisp off the end of this blank. Okay, I really like the way that feels. I think I'm ready to start sanding. So let me get my tool rest out of the way. And we'll grab us some sandpaper. What I'm going to do is pause the video for a minute. A sandpaper's still on the roll, so I'm going to get the pieces cut and labeled and then clean up a little bit of this mess here so we can see the sand a little better, and I'll be right back. I've got my sandpaper cut and ready to go, and I use standard roll sandpaper. I believe I picked it up. It's Wood River, so I believe I picked it up over at Woodcraft. One thing about it, I like the roll paper because it's convenient for making pins. The bad thing is the back of the paper. Now on this one you can kind of see a 150, but the back of the paper is not really labeled all the way through, so you get these cut off and you get mixed up on what grit you have, and instead of going down a grit you go up a grit, and it can actually mess up a project. So I like to take a Sharpie and I just write on the back, 150, 240, 320, 400 and 600, which are the basic grits that I go through when I make a wooden pin. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off a little bit. I'm not going to use the 150 when I make an acrylic pin. If it's really rough, which I tell you what, I really like the way the skew worked, I may start with a 240 or a 320. I think I'm going to start with a 240, and I'm going to work through these grits, and then I've got some special paper that I'll use for acrylic, and I'll show you that in a minute. But one thing you want to do when you're sanding, you don't want to treat this like a pen. You don't want to get in here and really grind into it because you'll actually cut grooves in the acrylic. I find it's best to kind of pull the paper from one end to the other, and then I'll start on this end and I'll pull the paper back. And I get a little bit smoother cuts. It doesn't let the acrylic heat up as much, so it doesn't melt the shavings or the dust back into the blank. So the other thing is you want to turn your speed way down, and I'm going to turn my lathe way down. The bottom setting is 500 RPMs, and you can see that's relatively slow. And I'm just going to basically, you can see how you can see the white grooves coming up. I'm just basically going down through there and moving the paper. I'll use my fingers every once in a while to kind of take the dust off. I don't know if that's advisable or not, but it works for me. What I'm trying to do is get a nice, you can see the lines in it, see how it has kind of grooves? As you sand, that'll become solid. You won't see those grooves. That means that you're getting the blank down to a nice smooth consistency from one end to the other. But I just kind of like to take my time with this and pull it back and forth on the blank until I see a nice, consistent, dusty looking color from one end to the other. Don't hold it in any one place too long. Like I said, if you do, what'll happen is you'll actually burn the dust right back into the pin. See how it's starting to get more and more of a solid look? Okay, that's what you're shooting for. Now I'm going to go through the other grits, and I'll be back in a minute. I'm really happy with the way this blank is turning out. It's probably hard to see in the video, but There are some very, very, very fine scratches on there. They're difficult to see at a distance, and I've got some special paper here, some polishing paper that I'm going to use now, and it's just some very fine paper. And what it is, it goes from 1,500 grit all the way up to, I believe, 12,000. Yeah, 12,000 grit. There are 9 different pieces here, and it comes with a block. And I'll lay the sandpaper over the block, and I'll just simply pull it down the blank from one end to the other as the blank is turning once again at a slow speed. And this is going to basically polish all these really fine scratches out. And so I'm going to run through a couple of these grits while you're watching, and then I'll spare you the boredom, and I'll turn it off, finish the grits, and then we'll come back for polishing. So let's get started. I like to move from end to end, and I don't like to hold the paper in any one place very often because it tends to build up heat, and the heat is going to basically melt any of the dust from the blank back into the blank, and it's going to cause some nasty little blemishes that you're then going to have to worry about repairing. And I like to make several passes, just back and forth from one side to the other, changing paper. You can see this paper's fairly well used. I've made a lot of pins with it. And I don't know if you can really see it in the video, but it actually, the scratches are getting smaller. And once again, I will, let me get a hold of the block here. I'll do this back and forth to take the scratches, just change the direction of the scratches, kind of make any of the deeper scratches lighter and enable me to more easily remove them from the pen. And then a lot of times I just take my hand and wipe the dust. This blank is really starting to look beautiful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the other 8 grits, and when I'm finished I'm going to come back and then we're going to talk about polishing the blank and giving it that real shiny, beautiful look that we all want our pens to have. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'm back a little bit early, guys. As I sanded this blank, I made it through all the grits, and when I stopped and took a look at the blank, I noticed there were still some fine scratches in it. I was unhappy with that, so I've gone back through my polishing paper a second time. I'm up to the 8,000 grit right now, and basically I'm just kind of buffing a little bit. Normally I pull from end to end, but whenever I have some pretty deep scratches, I'll use the sanding pad and sort of press it into the blank a little bit, and just kind of, I like to wipe my hand on it periodically to take any dust off, and I constantly turn the blank because you don't want to build up any heat. So that's the 8,000. Now I'm going to jump over to the 12,000 grit paper, and basically I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of buff a little bit, and the idea is the more I can reduce the scratches in the pen, the better the pen is going to look as a finished product. It's going to have more of a shine to it. Let's turn it off and see what we got. It looks pretty darn good right now. The pen is, there are some super, super fine scratches. I don't really think you're going to notice those. Plus, I use a one-step polish, and I'll flip it over. Actually, I'm not sure which way this video will appear, but it's a one-step polish, and I really like to use this. It actually polishes and basically fills any gaps or any scratches in the pen so that you don't have non-reflective surfaces. Give me a minute to get prepared for using the polish, and we'll get that put on. All right, I've gone in the house and raided my wife's paper towels again, and basically I just cut the paper towels into small strips, and I'm going to shake the one-step polish up and put, I don't know, about a pea-size dollop on the rag. I'm just going to make sure I get the entire blank covered before I start. And I'm going to start the lathe up. Speed it up. Just going a little bit of speed it up. I guess I'm running about 1,200, 1,400 RPMs there, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm just going to treat it like I would any friction polish. Just basically moving back and forth on the blank and feeling the heat coming through the paper towel. I look at this black. I'll talk about this for a second. This polish actually is polishing these bushings, and this black is actually coming off these bushings. Now, on this particular acrylic blank, being a darker color, you're not going to see any issue with that. Sorry about having that out of the screen. But if you happen to be turning a deer antler, or you happen to be turning a pearl blank, what I have found is it's best to buff these bushings first. I'll remove the blank, buff the bushings to clean them up, then I'll put the blank back in and I'll buff the blank, and I generally will start from the middle and work side to side as I buff. And that's because I've had a couple of blanks ruined by the black, the tarnish that's coming off of these bushings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the lathe back up and just kind of finish buffing. I gave the one step a couple of seconds there to sort of set up while we were talking. And really I'm just going to buff this blank out. And you can really see it starting to shine. I hope the video is doing this justice. I don't have the best lighting in my shop, but the blank is really starting to shine. And once again, I'm just applying a little bit of pressure to the blank, which basically builds up a little bit of friction and enables the polish to do its job. That blank is beautiful. I've got a couple of very, very tiny hairline scratches that I can see. Not happy about those, but sometimes they're tough to avoid on the acrylic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab another paper towel, and I'm going to take another go at this polish. And like I said, I'm just first start off, I'm going to just get the blank nice and covered. Then I'm going to fire the lathe up. Let's see what we get. Okay, those scratches that I saw have actually reduced. They're smaller, more difficult to see. I'm actually going to do a third coat. Most of the time I get away with 2 coats, but I've had a scratch here, and I don't know if you can see it. Where's it at? Right there. And it was difficult to see when I was sanding, but it's showing up now that it's polished. That's the only blemish I see. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to do one more coat of this, because this actually fills and polishes and will hide many of those scratches. So I'm going to make sure I get a little bit of extra amount over here, and I'm going to focus really on this left side as I polish this blank. So let me get the lathe turned on. And plenty of tarnish still coming off of the bushings. That scratch is still, it's just a hairline scratch. It's really hard to see. Normally what I would do in a situation like this, if this pin is actually going to be for me, just something to wear in my pocket, I'm not going to be too concerned. I'll place the clip over that scratch to where I don't see it. If I was making this for someone else, a customer or a friend, I probably would stop with the polishing, pull back out the polishing paper, run through the grits one more time, and then buff it again. But however, since this is for me and I just want something to wear in my pocket, I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lathe shut down, get everything cleaned up here, and then I'm going to move the camera and we're going to go over to the pin press, and we're actually going to press this pin together and see what the final product looks like. I've moved down to the other end of my table, and we're going to press the pin together. The lighting is once again not the greatest. That's something I've got to work on in my shop. But what I like to do is just get all of the pieces of the pin out, get them all together, make sure everything is here, and that's what we're going to do real quick. And we're looking pretty good. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the blank, I'm going to bring my pin press over, and here's the pin press, and we're basically going to begin assembly of this pin. So give me 1 second to, everything looks good, everything seems to be in working order, so give me 1 second and we're going to put this pin together. I'm back and I'm ready to start assembly. So what I've got is, for this particular kit, they want you to insert, this is the back end of the bullet pin, and of course you've got your primer there. They want you to insert this into the tube, okay, and press it in. What I like to do is, if you're not real careful, this clip can actually mar the outside of the pin. These unscrew. So if you unscrew the primer, you can pull the clip off, and what you're left with is something that's very easy to press into the pin. So we're going to take our pin. I want to insert, just push it right down in there. Come down here to our pin press. I'm just going to make sure everything is snug. What I like to do is I use a piece of just corrugated cardboard. This is Teflon down here, so it's not going to mar the pin. But I'll take a piece of corrugated cardboard and put it against any metal-to-metal surfaces. And what it does, just gives me a little extra cushion to make sure that I'm not going to mar up any of the surfaces or ruin any of the threads and make it hard to reassemble this pin. I'm just going to slide the clip back on the pin. And we're going to tighten this down. Alright, and there's your cap of your pen. Now we're going to take our ink refill, if I can get a hold of it here. Alright, it's got a little protective cap on the end. We're going to remove that. We're going to take the bullet, insert the refill. Actually, before you insert the refill, it's probably a good idea to put the spring on the refill, then insert it into the pen. This particular piece is the transmission. That's what allows the ink to move in and out of the pen. So I'm going to basically screw it right on here, snug it down a little bit, take the back of our pen, the two snap together, and we have a beautiful bullet pen. I'm sorry the quality of the video is not all that great and the lighting is not that great, because this is really a beautiful pen, and I wish I could give you a better view of just how amazing this acrylic pen looks. I want to thank you guys for watching. This is one of my first videos. I'm hoping to become better at producing videos and get a few more out to you on pen turning, so please stay tuned, and it's been fun. Thank you.